Welcome. In this session, we are going to see some basics about and learn some basics about the Cassandra in cloud. So let's get started. So this is the first slide which talks about the Cassandra managed instance cloud service providers. So there will be three slides in the beginning which will talk about who all are the cloud service providers who provides the managed instance for Cassandra. So the first one in this series is AWS provides the managed instance of Cassandra as AWS Amazon Keyspace. The second in this series is Azure managed instance for Apache Cassandra, and the third one is Google Data Stack. So all the three big cloud players, they provide the managed instance of Cassandra. So if you talk about the Google Cloud, that is something which is available in marketplace. So it is not like something which is the proprietary, but there are partners who developed and they uh, are giving it to the customers. So let's talk about the Cassandra in AWS. Let me first talk about the basics about the Cassandra. So Cassandra, you can see a logo with the beautiful eye. So that's the Cassandra's logo. And before we start with what is Cassandra and why this is so popular, if you talk about the first five top NoSQL database which are being used in the industry for several applications. So Cassandra comes at number two in some of the quadrants, and sometimes three, and some at some places. It has always maintained a place in first five topmost NoSQL databases. So when we say NoSQL database, that means a database which is not only SQL, right? So if you know about the RDBMS, in RDBMS relational database, the data is stored in the form of table. So table will have the columns and the rows, and there is a predefined format of the table, and there will be a data type also predefined wherein you have to put your data in the specified format. So whatever has been fixed in the format of the table, so you cannot go beyond that unless or until you redefine the definition of the table. So that has something which was concerning, and that has evolved the NoSQL database, and Cassandra is one of them. So when we talk about the Cassandra or any other NoSQL database, they do not have any specified design. Like the RDBMS, there will be a table which has been predefined. There will be n number of columns. You have to insert the data in the defined format. But in NoSQL, there is no such strict design. They are fluid and dynamic in nature. So whatever data types you wanted to define, you can define in their schema. So it is a fluid kind of schema over there. If you talk about the relational database, so there is always a top limit. So if you talk about the vertical limit, so in terms of the CPU storage or the memory, so for each machine which holds the relational database, there is a vertical limit, and beyond that you cannot expand. So that is another limitations for the relational database. To overcome such situation, NoSQL has a solution in place which talks about the horizontal scalability. So you can add n number of nodes. So you have the multi-node environments available, and you have the commodity hardware as well. So you can use those commodity hardwares, and you can control over the availability, like how many nodes will be there, which all will suffice the kind of cluster. Not, we will say, not the cluster, but the nodes. So just the basics about the NoSQL, they do not have any schema. So we say it is a schema free. That doesn't mean that there is nothing like a schema. The schema is there, but you have the complete control, and whatever way you wanted to define your schema, you can do that. And in case of NoSQL database like Cassandra, there is an easy replication. So if you have multi-nodes, you can easily replicate the data from one node to another. You have the simple API so that you can interact with the database. And when we talk about multi-node environment and NoSQL database, so there is something called as eventually consistent. So if I want more availability, if I want more number of nodes, which is good for the read operation, so I wanted the data to be eventually consistent. So if I get some data which is stale, that is not the recent data, so that's also fine. And when we talk about the NoSQL database like Cassandra, it can handle huge data, hundred thousands of terabytes of data, which will be spread across multiple nodes. This is just a comparison about the relational database and NoSQL database. So relational database supports query language, something like SQL, wherein you just say select a star from the table name. So those kinds of statements are supported in relational database. When you say NoSQL database, so there is nothing like very simple query language. So the query language is entirely different. So if you talk about the Cassandra as well, so there is something called a CQLSH, Cassandra query line command line. So you have to interact with your database using that command line. In relational database, there is a fixed schema. That means if there is a table that will have n number of columns with the defined data types, and if you have to insert the data inside that table, you have to follow the what do you say, the guidelines, like this data type can be inserted in this table, this particular column. There is nothing like that when we talk about NoSQL database. The data, the schema is fluid in nature. So if you wanted to have n number of rows in one, and if you wanted to have n plus one in another, you can do that. There is no such fixed schema when we talk about NoSQL database. Relational database are useful when you talk about asset compliance. So atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability. Giving an example of bank application where everything we need has to be atomic, consistent, isolated, and durable. If we talk about NoSQL database, though they support, but they have eventually consistent. So it is not like they are very strict in consistency, but there are models wherein you can model your database according to your requirement. Relational database supports the strong consistency in terms of the transaction, but in case of no relational database, it is not like that. Let's talk about now what is Apache Cassandra. So Cassandra is a type of NoSQL database. It has been developed by Apache. So Apache Cassandra is highly scalable. When we say scalable, so you can add a number of nodes according to your requirement, and they have high performance because the data is spread across multiple nodes and there is no single point of failure. Cassandra is column oriented database. You can scale it. It is a fault tolerant, it is consistent, and it has been used by Facebook, and it entirely differs from your relational database, right? And its distribution design is something like your Amazon's DynamoDB, and data model is like your Google's Big Table. Cassandra, it is designed to run on the cheap commodity hardware. So if you have multiple nodes, the new node which you wanted to add, you don't need to have the specialized hardware for that. You can have the commodity hardware, and you can store hundred thousands of terabyte on those hardwares, right? There is no impact on the read efficiency. So if you wanted a multi-node environment wherein read has to be spread across, then you can use it. So they are conflicting statement whether it supports very strong asset compliance or no. So it is always a matter of question, and it is always a matter of what your application wanted to have. Easy data distribution is one of the strongest, what do you say, the feature in Cassandra. So if you have data which you wanted to spread across multiple data centers, you can use the inbuilt feature, and that can be easily replicated. So you have flexible data storage as well. So you can store data in which is structured, semi-structured, non-structured. So it's all about the data model which it supports. So it has fast linear scale performance. So the performance can be scalable in terms of, because it supports multiple node, and the response time is really very nice. It supports the elasticity, right? So it is highly scalable. So now we will go back to the service providers in the cloud. The first one in the series is Amazon Keyspace. So if you know Cassandra about the basics, so the first thing, at the topmost level, you create a key space. So this name has been derived from that keyword only. So Amazon Key Space for Apache Cassandra is a managed instance of Cassandra. It is highly scalable. That means because it is managed, and I believe open source relational databases, NoSQL databases like Cassandra, they have been in real demand because of such managed instances, wherein you have to spin n number of nodes, and you wanted to have more reads, you have to go with the managed instance. They are highly available because of the n number of nodes. When we say managed Apache Cassandra, it is a compatible database service. That means whatever Cassandra you are using in on-premises, it is compatible with those. And there are certain features which are available in these key space in AWS. So it supports your CQL as such. So the API which you are using to interact with the database, that works in Apache Keyspace, sorry, the Amazon Keyspace. Whatever tools, drivers, and others which you have been using on your on-premises Apache Cassandra, that you can continue to use in Amazon Keyspace. So virtually there is no difference when you are using the Apache Cassandra on-premises or Amazon Keyspace in AWS cloud. It is managed instance, and it has a serverless offering as well. So instead of your provision, wherein you will say, I want 100 terabytes of storage and so much of CPU memory predefined. So it depends upon what kind of consumptions you have in your Amazon key space. It will be automatically scalable according to your requirement. Patching and other things are always a problem when you talk about such non-relational databases like Apache Cassandra. So patching will be what do you say? You will be getting rid of that. If you talk about managing the server, so the underlying server, you don't have to worry about that because it is a managed instances. You don't have to install the operating system related patches and other things. The tables which is going to hold your actual data, that can scale up automatically according to your requirements. So that's all about the feature of Cassandra in AWS cloud, which is known as Amazon Key Spaces, and we say it is compatible with the Apache Cassandra. The second one in the series is the managed instance, which is supported by, or which is offered by Azure. It is Azure Managed Instance for Apache Cassandra. It is in the preview phase, and I believe it will be released very soon. So when you need the scalability and high availability, and you have to go with the managed instance. So Azure is really doing great in all other managed instances. So hopefully this will also will be a big hit. So if you wanted to transform or if you wanted to move your on-premises environment to the Apache Cassandra in Azure managed instances, this will be a good time just for the testing, because it is in a preview phase, and whatever you wanted to test, you can test it over there, right? And being Apache Cassandra an open source source stuff, so when you put it in the managed instance, you will be getting rid of day-to-day operational headaches. So that will be really nice. And if you know about Cosmos DB, and there is a punchline for the Cosmos DB from Microsoft Azure, which says this is a database which is meant for the entire globe. So there is a ring around that particular logo, and the team which created that Cosmos DB, the same team has created this managed instance as well. So the flexibility and offerings which is provided by Cosmos database, I believe the same is going to be provided once it is there in full release. So you will get rid of the deployment, maintenance, scaling, and other stuff. So this will be really cool when it comes up. Google has been a little bit behind when you talk about the Apache Cassandra, because this is being offered by the DataStax. And this is like what do you say, the vendors which come in and they sell it through the Google Cloud Service Provider. So DataStax is doing all this, and it supports a massive amount of data, and DataStax, which provides a Apache Cassandra managed instance, it has a proven history for it, and it is really doing great. When you talk about the deployment, management, and scalability, which is horizontal, adding a number of nodes, so everything like a managed instance, you can just mention the number of nodes and it will take care of this. So most of the enterprise environment, because of the underlying Google infrastructure, they are trying to move inside this. And data stacks Cassandra as a service is called as Astra on Google Cloud Marketplace. And this is all about the three topmost players. So you have the first in the series is Cassandra in AWS, which is known as Amazon Keyspace. This is really doing great because the way you work in your on-premises Cassandra environment, if you are a DBA, most of the time you will be working on the maintenance of the Apache Cassandra infrastructure. So those things will be taken away, but most of the APIs that you have been working on your on-premises environment, like CQLSH, which is your command line shell, that is similar. So there is no difference when you work, right? Other than like you will not have the operating system access. When you talk about the Azure managed instance for Cassandra, so Azure has been a little bit behind because it is still in the preview phase, and to the current situation, I believe it is in the preview phase. And Azure, it has been good in all the managed instances which it has been providing for other non-relational or relational database. So hopefully this will also be a good launch from Azure. The last in the series is from the Google, which is Astra, which is Data Stacks Cassandra as a service, because everything is on Google infrastructure. So we hope, like any other Google service, this is going to be a big hit. So we just discussed about the three topmost service providers of Apache Cassandra, and then we saw about the why NoSQL database like Cassandra is really doing a great because of the features which they support, and the difference between relational and non-relational databases. Then we saw about what is Apache Cassandra, the basics about that, and how they are having some kind of similarity with the Amazon's DynamoDB and Google's Bigtable. And some of the features of Cassandra, which supports hundreds thousands of the terabytes of database size. How do they do the fast writes and eventual reads and other things? The transaction support, those things we have seen. And that's all about it. I hope it will be useful. Thank you.